But
can you tell me about the who was that really horrible director in the movie with Joan? Is that Dancing Daughters?
Our dancing.
Our
Daughters.
dancing where you fell down where he.
I did
Can
one
you
of
tell
the,
me that story?
I did one of the best performances in my life with that one. I don't think he wanted me at first because he felt that, that was about the first or second picture I made, and I think he thought I could never do it. But I knew I could. So I just didn't let it worry me. I kept thinking, I'll show you. I'll show you when the hard parts come, you know, and I did. The reviews were marvelous for me. I mean, they said this girl has acting. She was kind enough to had beauty, acting ability, and she has magnetic unself-consciousness. See, that's very important. I mean, in other words, if you can appear before the camera and make it seem like it's really happening, you know what I mean? It's not just something they're doing. That's half the battle, and I could do that.
Tell me how he made you fall down and lie on the wet floor.
Well, he didn't make me do it. He realized that I couldn't do it without maybe hurting my. I told him, I said, I can't fall all down those stairs without hurting myself, maybe. So we decided then to do the first 4 steps, you see, and I did do that. I was able to do that without hurting myself, and I think I don't know whether we had to do it once or twice or whatever, but we did it, and it went over beautifully. I mean, because people really felt when this man announced that I had, for instance, never had a drink in my life, and that I had done this.
Okay, we've told that story now.
No, it's okay. Now, how about what happens when you're at the when you were at the bottom of the stairs?
I was in such smelly water. I wanted to do it real. I mean, it was all dirty and smelly. I smelled for a week after that. Showers and everything, couldn't get it out. But I was going to do it, and I was going to do it real. I mean, I could have probably just fallen down once, but no, I fell 4 steps because I turned because I felt that was the way you would get the real turn, and I did. People afterwards would say, "Well, how did you fall that many stairs?" You know, and says, I didn't fall any more than 4, but it was done so well because the director let me do what I wanted to do in it, and I just threw myself like that, and it just looked very real.
What's the story about the cage and making your mark? The director who made
the cage.
You're having trouble hitting the mark. You told me that story, and the director said, "Okay,
build her a thing like that." Well, I was so furious, but I thought, "I'll fix you. I'm not going to make anything out of this, but right now, but I'll do it, and I'll do it right." And this darling actress, I've forgotten her name, and she saw that he said, "Oh, put a square around, you know," and so I couldn't get off my line, see. And this darling actress, I've forgotten her name now, but she's well known, and she came up to me and she said, "You're going to be great in this picture." It's all I needed. I knew I was going to be, I really took the picture. They gave me beautiful write-ups.
Can you at all approximate the conversation that took place between you and the director when he built that cage around the mark? Like, what did he?
I didn't talk to him. I
you?
talked to myself. Oh, he said, "Build this around her," and I thought to myself, I didn't talk to him. I talked to myself, and I said, "I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you." And then this darling Dorothy, what was her name? She was an actress, and she came up behind me and she wheeled it. What was it?
Dorothy Sebastian.
Yes, that darling Dorothy Sebastian. She was working in it too, and she came up and she whispered in my ear, "You're going to be great in this picture." And that's all I needed. I knew I was going to be great.
So the director didn't really.
No, he didn't want me the first time.
But would he say to the crew, "Build it around her"? But he wouldn't come up to you, and say, "You'd better do this."
No, he didn't.
He wouldn't talk to you directly, right? He'd kind of talk.
Well, I don't know whether he did or he didn't. It didn't make any difference to me. I mean, I knew what I was going to do.
What I'm getting at is. Do you think he just kind of looked at you as almost like an object? Put her here, put her there. Or did he relate to you as a woman? Was it like a man-to-woman thing? Explain.
I think it was more the other thing. I think
Can you describe what it felt like?
Well, I think, in other words, he wasn't worried about my feelings, or he wouldn't have been so, acted that way. But I think he was just so busy trying to get the effect he wanted, which was where he wanted me to stand there, you see. And I would get interested in it, and I'd forget. I was so interested in the work and getting the part that I didn't worry too much about where I was, so I can understand in a way why he was trying to get me on that one spot. But I finally did it. I finally got it, and it was one of the best things in the picture, I think, because they gave the people who
Did you
gave me the
understand
picture.
that meant you were out of focus if you moved off the mark? Did he ever explain that to you?
Oh, we didn't have to, and I think I did realize, but it didn't worry me. I mean, I just figured if I do what I'm supposed to do and I get it across, it will be fine, and it was great. They gave me the picture.
What was it like? Was that your first movie with Joan Crawford?
Yes, she was in it, and that was it. In fact, I only made one with her, and that was it.
Can you say Joan Crawford was in it? Is there a story between you and Joan Crawford of what it was like for women working?
Well,
for that
it was a
director?
little story, but I'm not going to repeat it.
Oh, Anita, you made 4 pictures with Crawford.
I did?
Uh-huh.
How did I last? Oh, brother. I made 4 pictures with her?
Our Dancing Daughters, Our Modern Maidens, Blushing Brides, and then
They were
Holly-
a threesome,
Yeah, they were 3, and then Hollywood Review.
Oh, yeah.
But what she wants is say yes, Joan Crawford, and then tell the story because they
Say,
won't
I
use
worked
it.
with Joan Crawford in that picture, and
Yes.
just tell me a story about you and Joan Crawford, something that happened.
I could
while
tell you
they-
something that I won't, I'll tell you that. But anyway, I will say this, that I had heard of her, but I didn't know who Joan Crawford was from, but then I met her and found out we were going to work together, I suppose, and we didn't, I think she resented, at first she wanted me to go to dancing school with her, because I think she felt that I was refined and nice girl, and my mother was there and everything, and I think she was kind of wanting that. She wanted that feeling of a family and this, that, and the other thing, nice, so that she's a nice girl and so on and so forth. But my mother didn't want me. She saw something, and I'll never know what it was. I never asked her, and she never told me. But she went into a place where Crawford had been, and there was something she must not have liked, because Crawford wanted me to go dancing, take dancing lessons with her and that. But my mother just explained that we had just moved out there, and we had a lot of things that we had to do, to get settled and so on. So I never went with Crawford up there to take any lessons at all.
So you had a lot of support. You had a mother, so you
Oh,
weren't
a
really
wonderful mother.
alone. And
Oh, no, I had a wonderful mother and a very dear father. He was a...
was your mother what they'd call a stage mother?
No.
Did
No.
she want you to be in the movies?
Wasn't her idea. It was mine. I went out and got the job. And then,
And how did you get the job?
Well, I had heard of this gentleman who placed models in certain places. Well, I didn't want to be a model, but I wanted him back of me because this was in New York City. We were living in New York at that time. And so I wanted very much to get in the movies, but I wanted to do it nicely and so on. So I just waited, and then I knew Betty Bronson, who was a big star. And I had met Betty, and I thought the world of her. And so then I decided, I'd always wanted to be an actress, but when I knew her, I definitely wanted to be one. And so anyway, I'm trying to think just how I got started. Oh, I know. And Mrs. Bronson, Betty's mother, was a very good friend of mine and my mother's and so on. And I think it was on New Year's Eve or something, and she called me and she said, Anita, I had given her a picture. I'd had one of these pictures you get once in a lifetime, and I'd given it to her, and I kept some of them, but I gave one to her. And this man saw it. And so he asked her who I was, and he said, I'd like to meet her. So she told me, she said, this gentleman would like to meet you, Anita. So I said, well, fine, thank you. So I went out, and he began questioning me on this and that, and how I felt about this, and so on and so forth. But I didn't think that he was as interested as I thought he would be. So I remember the next morning, my mother very rarely ever interfered. But she did say, well, honey, aren't you going to call this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if he's interested, he'll call. I'd rather wait and see if he calls me. Well, he didn't call that day. So I thought, well, I guess that's it. That morning he calls me. Well, where are you? He said. Well, I said, you really wanted to see me? He said, look, I don't give my cards to anybody unless I want to see them. And he had given me his cards, you see. So he said, now you be in front of Paramount tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and bring the picture. You see, it's how you photograph, too, that meant a lot. I mean, you could look just gorgeous. There wasn't, I think, a girl, there was a very lovely-looking girl, but she couldn't photograph because she had something that came out here in her face, and that picked up like that. And she was making $1,000 a day just posing, but she couldn't have, she just forgot the movies and went back to posing because you had to have a certain type of face to photograph, and she didn't have it, and I did, thank goodness. So then they called me. I went. I called.
Let me just interrupt you for a second. When they would go for all those famous close-ups in your era, which they don't really do now because it's like cut to this one, cut to this one.
Yes, yeah.
How did you sustain yourself? Was there something you thought about when you knew that the camera was taking a long close-up?
Well, usually they'd have somebody. I only was there for about a week or two before they signed me, so I didn't have much time to go into all these things. But Mr. Mayer talked to Mr. Thalberg, and this, that, and the other. And I had a little trouble with the people who had made the other movie that I made. And I didn't have the trouble, but I mean, they were not too well taken. And but I was. They didn't do anything to hurt me in any way. And so this gentleman that was a friend of Betty Bronson's, who was a big star, he had seen the picture of me that I'd given Mrs. Bronson. She put it right on her big table and everything. And I don't think she had another thing on there but that one picture. And he wanted to meet me.